In the day-to-day operations of handling food, many decisions need to be made about quality. It's important to know where your food comes from, how it's sourced, how to process it, how to store it, and the best cooking methods to match it. These tutorials will take you on your learning journey. Supply chain. There are several major crab species found and commercially caught in Australia. Blue swimmer crabs, which are fished in Western Australia and South Australia. Mud crabs, which are fished in northern Western Australia, Northern Territory, Queensland and northern New South Wales. A range of deep sea crabs, crystal, champagne and snow crabs, which are fished in southwestern, South Australian and Tasmanian waters. Spanner crabs, which are fished in northern New South Wales and southern Queensland. Catching methods for crabs vary from species to species. A majority, however, are caught in baited pots, which are set at depths from 5 to 40 metres. They are left to soak for a period of time, which allows for crabs to find the bait before the pots are pulled out. Other methods of crab catching include by hand for mud crabs and screen trays for spanner crabs. The fishermen pull the pots and check that the crab meets legal size and gender criteria. Each state and territory fisheries management agency set these criteria. Crabs enter our markets in two main forms, either fresh, dead or alive, and processed. The handling technique for live crabs differs depending on how they will enter the market. Some species, such as blue swimmer crabs, are held in live tanks on the fishing boats until it returns to port prior to it being processed at onshore facilities. If the crabs are to be sold live, larger crab species such as mud or crystal crabs' claws will have their claws bound and be placed in aerated wells, returned to the port and unloaded. From there, the live crabs are transported to live holding facilities for export and the domestic market. The majority are transported live to these markets. Crabs can be processed and delivered cooked, whole or frozen. A number of producers are also now producing a range of value-added products such as crab cakes, bisques, or meat products such as claw or mince. Processing.
Cleaning and preparing raw crabs is very similar. So blue swimmer crabs and mud crabs are quite the same, and I'll make reference on the different points to cover as well. So first off, we have our humanely killed crab, and what we want to do is flip that over. So lifting up the abdominal flap, placing your thumb on the inside, and with a bit of force, just pulling away that top carapace. So as we see now, we can see the internals of the crab, and we've also got the lungs on this side here. So we don't discard this head either. We can use that to make soups, sauces, and even once it's cooked can be quite nicely as for presentation as well. Alrighty, so now we're going to clean up these front feelers. Just break them off. And also the lungs. Just pull them straight away. So before we remove the internals out of this crab, what we're going to do is just get our knife, we're going to flip it over. That way we've got a nice line where we're going to cut this crab. Placing it in the middle and then just a quick bang down, thus cutting the crab in half. These crabs are still quite big to cook, so what we're going to do is actually cut them into quarters. That way a serving piece would be that top claw and also this back lump of the crab here. So once again, knife in the middle, quick bang, and the crab's into quarters. Okay, so we've quartered our crab and we can see that there's a few internals here left on the inside of the crab. Try not to overwash it, but just a little bit of a rinse and remove any internals or any nitty-gritty bits left. So now that we've cleaned out all the impurities of the crab, it's a good chance now to make sure we have a nice clean colour inside the flesh of this crab. Also give it a smell to make sure it smells nice and fresh. So this will be the first part that's different to the blue swimmer. If it was a blue swimmer, we wouldn't have needed to cut it into quarters. The half of that crab is a nice size. And with the mud crab, obviously these big thick claws need to be cracked open so the flavour can get inside. So using our mallet, what we're going to do is sort of flatten out the claw and just give it a crack until you actually can see that you've cracked the shell. So you also want to do that on the inside of the arm as well. Now the mud crab shell is really hard, so it might take a few cracks. So there we have our raw, clean mud crabs. Cleaning cooked blue swimmer crabs are very similar to cleaning the raw. However, what you do really need to focus on is trying to get as much meat as possible. Usually they're used in things like salads and cakes, and so the more meat you can get back, the better. So here's a few techniques on how to clean a cooked, clean swimmer crab. Lifting up the abdominal flap, placing your thumb on the back of the shell here, and then lifting through. Removing the head. Then removing the lungs on both sides and these top feelers. Quick crack breaks the crab in half. And when we're washing this one as well, we really don't want to wash away the flavour too much. So quick wash, a little bit of salty water, otherwise we're going to wash away the lovely flavours of the crab. So we have our freshly cleaned crabs, rinsed, ready for picking. So what you want to do, this is a little bit of a fiddly process. So what you want to do is actually crack the back of the crab down the middle, and you end up getting this back lump meat of the crab. So then the process starts of picking out the meat, making sure that we don't have any shell. When it comes to getting the meat out of the claw, if you break off that first end bit, a little bit of a crack on the end, and then pick away a little bit of this shell, the crab meat should come out. Now if it doesn't come out as well, we've actually got our own little picking device on the end of the crab claw here. So you can use the claws, scrape out any of that meat into our bowl. Because we are so conscious about yield with crabs, it's important to get every little bit of meat. So if we crack off these back legs and then crack it again on this side, makes it really easy to use the claw and push out that bit of meat as well. So there we have our cooked, clean, ready crab meat.
Receiving and storage.
There are various ways of purchasing crab: live, whole, green, fresh or frozen, whole cooked, fresh or frozen, picked meat, fresh, frozen or canned. When purchasing crabs, always check for size, translucency, make sure the shell's nice and firm, not too soft. Also making sure that you have a beautiful fresh smell, and you want to make sure that your crab's intact. No missing body parts, no legs off, unless you're buying a second quality crab. When storing crab, cooked and green are both very similar. We want to make sure though, with the green, that we only keep them for up to 1 day in the cool room, and with the cooked, you can keep them for up to 4. I like to use the steel to put holes into the bottom of the foam esky, that way the crabs don't sit in their own juices. For loading the crab, we just want to keep them upright, keep them nice and tight, pack them into the foam esky, so then that way they've got well drained, and we can put the ice on the top at the end. So we're going to put the ice on top of the crabs, keeping it for alternate coldness. Put it on a beautiful drainage tub, lid on, and then we take it to the cool room. When handling the mud crab, pick them up by their back legs, hold them nice and tight, making sure that the string is nice and tight, that way their claws don't get hold of you. After securing your mud crab, check for any eggs, any broken legs. You don't want to be paying for something that's been torn off. Also checking the shell to make sure the shell's all nice and bright and iridescent, and then giving it a little bit of a smell just to make sure that it's nice and fresh. And last but not least, feisty is freshness. For storage of mud crab, we're either going to be putting them into a nice live tank or into a foam esky on ice into the cool room. For the most humane way to kill live crabs, you want to pop them into a foam esky with the lid off into the freezer for up to 15 minutes or until they go to sleep.
Preparation. Cooking method. Boiling.
Cooking method, boiling. We're using beautiful Australian blue swimmer crabs. The tips are, bring your water to the boil, some salt. One of the tips about cooking crabs is do not overcook and do not fill a pan. So lid back on, cook for 6 minutes and then plunge into some ice water to stop or retard the cooking. So I returned the water to the boil and these have been boiling for 6 minutes. Now I'll take them out and plunge them into an ice slurry to slow down the cooking process. Right, now that we've boiled the crab, we're going to make a very simple crab salad, bearing in mind that crab is such a delicate flavour, it's best not to overpower it with a lot of strong ingredients. Avocado, some tomato, little snow pea tendrils, coriander, a little bit of dill, a little bit more. A little bit of dressing, this is like a lemon vinaigrette. Crabs love white pepper, so a little bit of white pepper, just a tad of salt. Mix that through. Some of the beautiful blue swimmer crab on top. And just a few little micro herbs. Touch more dressing. Clean your plate. There we have it, boiled blue swimmer crab salad.